Hi everyone. Just gonna double check that we're live here. We'll wait for some interaction before we get going. I hope your Monday is off to a wonderful start. If you're in the Treasure Valley area, hopefully you're enjoying this summer weather that we're finally seeming to get. Hi Becca. I've co-opted your office since you're not here today and you have Wi-Fi and I don't. Hi Laura. Oh, it's fun to see coworkers on here that I don't get to see in person anymore. Well, we can just kind of go ahead and get started and I'll introduce myself. My name is Tracy Darling DeMarcus and I have had the pleasure of working at the WCA now for just over 3 years. In my role currently as the Prevention Program Manager, I have a lot of really great experiences that I get to work with some amazing people. Hi Ellie, hi Rebecca. And part of what I do as the Prevention Program Manager is working with youth and also families and adults who work with youth to provide them with the skills and tools to be able to have conversations with the young people in their lives. So whether that's parents or guardians or caregivers or coaches or teachers, these adults can really play an important part in modeling behaviors and those, healthy relationships components, modeling how to have healthy relationships, how to do the things that we want to see manifesting in our relationships. And so sometimes though, we as adults don't necessarily get taught or trained on how to talk about this stuff. So, and there's my husband on here liking stuff. Hi, Nate. So we find it's really important to have conversations with adults as much as young people in talking them through sometimes difficult conversations. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And feel free to use our website for more information, and I'll give some other resources at the end of this live. But what we're going to talk about today is called Teach Tips. And this is a method that a renowned researcher in relationships came up with, Dr. John Gottman. And we use it because it's a really simple, straightforward way to start a difficult conversation. And we find that it helps to navigate those sometimes challenging talks that we have to have. So the Teach Tips is a great way if you're like, I don't know how to have this conversation, I don't know how to start it. Teach Tips is a great way to start. So the T in Teach stands for take a minute to relax with your teen. So when we're talking about relationships, when we're having these conversations, it's really important to be mindful about the time and the place that we're having them. This may not seem that big of a deal, but when a young person maybe is experiencing a new or a something in their relationship that they haven't experienced before, they're probably feeling a lot of really conflicting and confusing emotions. And so making sure we're thinking about the time and the place to approach this topic with them is really important. So making sure to have time free of distractions or disruptions, that you can focus your full attention on them and what they're sharing with you, because especially if they are experiencing potentially unhealthy or harmful things in their relationship, it's already really, really hard for them to talk about and to disclose to someone. So making sure that they know that you are prioritizing them and what they're saying, putting away the phones, making sure, maybe it's depending on your, the circumstances, maybe it's you and another parent or another adult in that child's life having this conversation together. But maybe it's just you and them. This could be even like in the car, on a drive. That can also help with the conversation, having them sitting next to you. And so you're not having to have this really intense, constant eye contact. That can sometimes be a little bit, feel a little bit safer for your young person who might be talking about something that's difficult for them. So yeah, being really mindful of the timing and the place that we're having these conversations, and making sure it's as disruption-free as possible really helps to just get that conversation started. The E in teach stands for empathize. Empathizing with them on how difficult and complicated relationships can be. Again, this may seem pretty basic, but if they're coming to you, if you're having these conversations with them, really they just want a place to feel heard and validated, and know that somebody is in their corner and supporting them. Hi, Loopy. And so empathize with that. Remember what it was like when you were young and first starting out in relationships. They can be so complicated and so complex, and we can feel so many different and confusing things. And that can be really hard for a young person to figure out. So empathizing with that, saying, validating things, even if, sometimes I think as adults we assume that a teen's relationship is not as serious or important maybe as we think relationships should be as adults. Oh, they only text all the time, they don't even see each other, or those sorts of things. So really just making sure we're understanding, even if this relationship to them looks different than a relationship I would have, not disregarding that or devaluing that, because those feelings and those things that are coming up for that person are still very, very real and feel very real to them. So empathizing and validating the experiences that they're having. A in teach stands for acknowledge their feelings. They may just want somebody to listen to them, to hear them out, and again, validate those feelings and thoughts that they might be having. So saying, supportive or encouraging things like, thank you for sharing that with me. That sounds really difficult. Acknowledging, validating those feelings. C in teach stands for connect by actively listening before giving your own thoughts. So again, sometimes when adults get put into situations where they're talking to young people about things, we come in as this problem solver. And while that can be helpful, it's more important to give that young person the time and the space to say what they need to say before jumping in with your own thoughts and opinions. So really open up the dialogue. Again, listen respectfully, non-judgmentally, being really mindful of our nonverbal cues and body language also, because they will pick up on that really quickly. If we're going into a conversation and have really, really closed off or frustrated or angry body language, they're gonna pick up on that right away and probably shut down to having any further conversation. So being mindful of that, again, acknowledging, listening respectfully before jumping in with any sort of opinions of your own, even though that might be tempting. And then the H in teach tips stands for help them problem solve when they're ready. I think we all probably know as a young person when you are told you have to do this or don't do this, our reaction can be the opposite of those things. So if this person comes to you, if this young person discloses maybe they're having some concerns about their relationship, and you know, you just, because you care, you're coming from a place of love and concern, saying you have to do this, you have to break up, you have to leave this person, can be counterproductive to actually having, to getting to real solutions. So I would encourage you, obviously if somebody's in immediate danger, there are different conversations that need to be had or different decisions to be made. But if they're just not really sure about that relationship and coming to you to kind of talk it out, really take the time to work with them to come up with a solution together. Not just saying, you have to do this because I'm your parent or your guardian or I'm the adult in this situation. Trying to come up with a solution that feels good for them and for you as the person who cares about them is probably going to be a more productive way to move forward than just saying this is what it is and this is how it has to be. So the teach tips that I just gave you have a really great way of just, again, setting the stage to open that conversation up, which is so important. And I think a lot of people maybe shy away from talking about these things because it is difficult and it can get messy and it can get complicated. But that's all the more reason to do it. Because if they're not talking to you about these things, or if you're not talking to them about these things, where are they then going for this information? And is that the best place? Is that the, I mean, if we're thinking they're going to the internet to find these things, they're probably going to get some maybe not so great information. And so making sure that they know that you are a person that is there for them and they can talk to about these things, even if the conversation doesn't go perfectly, it's better than not having it at all. But I would also say, and again, because a lot of times, and again, I work with adults and do presentations with adult audiences and things, and sometimes adults can be as hesitant, if not maybe even more so, to talk about these difficult subjects. And so I would also encourage you, if you are an adult who's thinking about bringing up this conversation with a young person in your life, I'm thinking in my circumstance about my niece. She's 14 and she's such a wonderful, lovely person, but this would still be a difficult conversation to have with her. And so thinking about where I'm coming to this conversation from as an adult, I would encourage you to do some self-reflection before jumping into that conversation if you feel like you're not ready or if you feel like you're not really sure how to do it. I think self-reflection is a really great place to start, and asking yourself some questions to, again, figure out where you're coming to this conversation from. So thinking about, was there ever a time in your life when an adult used the opposite of these teach tips with you in having a conversation, and how did that feel? So maybe they started the conversation but were really distracted and were on their phone, or there was maybe another child in the picture and were running through the room, and so they couldn't fully put their attention on you when you were trying to talk to them about this thing. Maybe they invalidated those feelings or said like, you're just so young, this isn't a real like relationship, or you shouldn't be so upset by this. How did that feel for you? And how likely were you to go to that person and be open with them after that? I would venture to say probably not as open, because again, if they're doing the opposite of those things, we're probably not feeling 100% safe, 100% supported, or like my voice is going to be heard and my decisions are going to be respected. So again, thinking about the experiences that you've maybe had, and how did that go, and how do you maybe want to make sure that doesn't happen in this relationship or in this conversation that you have with that young person. Another question to maybe ask yourself is, what is the hardest part about having a conversation about these topics for you? That could be anywhere from, maybe I experienced an unhealthy relationship when I was that age, and it's hard for me to go back to that place. Or maybe it's, I just don't know that I fully understand or know, the best way to have a healthy relationship. So how could I model that for this young person? There's a lot of different things that could come up when we think about having a conversation about relationships with young people. So again, reflecting on that, and maybe I always talk to young people about practicing their, these different pieces of healthy relationships. And I think that can be just as useful for an adult who's going into a conversation. Maybe before bringing the conversation to your young person, talk to a partner or a friend and just say, hey, I really want to talk to my teen about their relationships, but I'm, having some issues or having some trouble getting through it. Can I talk to you about that? Because again, the more that we normalize, the more that we talk about these things, the easier it gets. And so again, maybe even practicing with another adult or somebody that you feel like you can really lay this all out for before bringing it to the young person in your life, so you feel more comfortable talking about it. And then finally, again, one last little question for some self-reflection. What is something that you wish someone had told you before you started dating? And have you said that to your child or this young person, right? So maybe because we are older, because we're adults, we do have more lived experience. We do have more instances in our lives to draw on, and that can provide us some really great insight. And so, yeah, if there was something that you wish somebody had said to you, make sure you're saying that to your kids, and so that they know that you understand what it's like, and we're in a situation, or young like them and new in relationships too at one point. This could also be a good time even to share your own experiences if that's something that feels comfortable for you and appropriate for the situation. It can be a really humanizing thing for an adult to say to a young person, like, yeah, I was young too, and I made mistakes, and these are the things that I learned from them. So that could be another way to really open up an honest conversation, is by just acknowledging that you had similar experiences, or maybe learned some things along the way in your life journey as well. I am going to peek into the comments really quickly and see if there's any questions. Oh, it looks like somebody shared. Oh, some of the tips that we put out on our Facebook page before. That's great. So helping your child, especially if they are in an abusive relationship. And I guess this is something too that's great to put out there. A lot of our services, or most of our services, are available for young people as well. They may need a parent's permission, but obviously if that's something that you are supportive of, them seeking help, they would be eligible to receive WCA services. So that's another really great opportunity for you to provide that support and saying, I'm so sorry this happened. Let's come up with a solution that feels good for both of us. And I know that there are resources in the community that I can help you get to. So knowing what those services are and knowing how to access them is another really, really great thing to do as an adult. finally, I would just really encourage you to keep learning, encourage your children to learn. Maybe you take some time together to go through Love is Respect's page on the internet. It's a really awesome resource that's specific for young people. They have so many great handouts, and they have quizzes and things like that. So maybe it's something like that. You take a time to go through that website together and learn together. Maybe it means watching a show together and really trying to analyze the relationships in the show. We use media a lot as a tool for learning in the work that we do, and that can be a really great way to first dissect some of the things that we internalize when we're watching these things, but also spend that time together and really have those good conversations. So I would highly encourage that as well. If we all have a lot of time right now that we're on Netflix and whatnot. So maybe picking a show together, watching it one episode at a time to really discuss kind of those relationship components can be really helpful too. Let's see. I'm just gonna see if there's any other questions. Please feel free to pop them in the comments. We will be. I will continue to monitor as they come up. But again, there's some really awesome resources out there. Our website, loveisrespect.org. I'll pop that in the comments here too. Breakthecycle.org is another one that is super helpful and accessible. So take the time to check those out if that feels right for you. Or reach out to the WCA if you ever have any questions. Again, we are providing services and even doing our prevention program. It looks a little bit differently now, but we are still doing all of those things. So always reach out to the WCA if you have any questions. We are here and ready to serve you. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you will come back on Wednesday for our second to last Becca and Olivia show. Our wonderful Jesuit volunteers who have been doing a weekly broadcast for you for the past several months. Their time with the WCA is coming to an end, so I hope you'll join in on Wednesday to see them. But yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out, comment on this post, message us directly, or call one of our hotlines. Thank you.